back. As usual, a lot is happening, and let's get going with this. We have so much going on in many different sectors.
Jim, what was the truth behind the U.S. government shutdown?
Okay, I've got an unorthodox interpretation. Trump got really busy cutting down various federal agencies and departments. Trump got really busy cutting budgets. Trump got busy doing a lot of different things, including installing the quantum financial system, which is probably a 20-step process, but he's getting far along in this, and it started to scare the living daylights out of the Democrats. So the Democrats decided, well, if you want to have a budget, we're going to have a few $100 billion per year over many years, and we're going to do health care for the illegal immigrants because we need their votes. We need those illegal votes. And Trump called them on it and took a 40-day period of time to call their bluff. And the Democrats thought that the nation would blame Trump. But the only people who blamed Trump were a minority of the Democrats. And who cares about the illegals' opinion or vote or whatever? So Schumer caved in, and the consequence is dire. The consequence is that the leaders of the Democrat Party now are even more extreme than they were before. And what I've learned in my 50-some years of watching U.S. politics is that a political party is on the way out when it turns to the extreme because it loses the middle. The middle is going squarely toward the Republicans and the conservatives. So I think we're going to see Schumer possibly retire. I actually I had a conversation with a military source. I got one who's written and one who's verbal. We talk by phone, and they're really quite interesting and in-depth. And one of them said to me, Jim, there's a lot of talk that Schumer, the senator of New York, is going to be forced to retire. This is amazing because we might see Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez lead the party, which is insane. Okay, they're turning more extreme. If you think Kamala Harris was empty-headed and extreme, you ain't seen nothing yet for the Democrat Party. And don't be alarmed by the Democrats' big win in New York City for the mayor. I just regard it as another nail in the Democrat coffin, and I celebrate that. So that's my take.
Before we go any further, can you tell us a bit about the Hat Trick Letter and how our listeners can subscribe and get a private call with you?
Yes, it's golden-jackass.com. I'm in my 22nd year here, long in the tooth, and pretty hard to deceive on what's happening, whether it's society, whether it's politics, or my favorite, finance and economics. I'm available for consult calls. I did one earlier today. I did one a couple of days ago. I've done 840 in the last 6 years. It's the consult button. And I got to mention something. I am under severe attack. I know a few other people who are under attack. It's for exposing not just fraud and corruption, it's for exposing evil. I haven't been killed. I haven't had an attempt on my life, but they're trying to do great harm to me financially. It's hard for me to save. I've had new events that have a clear demonic ring to it. So I need help. I need donations. I need aid. But the principal thing is to sign up for the newsletter. That's the flagship for the website, golden-jackass.com. So,
which markets are attracting most of your attention?
Lumber and rock salt. No, that's just a kid. I'm just kidding. Gold, silver, treasury bonds, Japanese government bond, and XRP. The Japanese government bond is in the news now because I don't know where I'm going to fit this in. I'll try to find a place, but the yen carry trade is now going in reverse. I'll try to describe that where it might be appropriate, the yen carry trade. The Japanese government bond is going up in interest rates, and they're dumping treasury bonds. They're dumping in a very big way treasury bonds. The pension funds in Japan have just dumped $1.1 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries. That's just Japanese pension funds. Okay, I'll try to work it in this conversation.
Are stable coins actually another name for central bank digital currencies, and what new risks do they present?
Well, for some countries, the stable coin could become a central bank digital currency, CBDC. I actually have kind of a bifurcated opinion that if it's outside the United States, if it's outside of England, the CBDC is kind of harmless. It'll perform a good function. Let's just say Hungary or Italy has a CBDC. Well, that's, in my opinion, that's harmless. But if the control centers, like England or the United States, have a CBDC, it'll be used to control in a nefarious manner. So apart from the CBDCs, I have comments about what the risks are with stable coins. It is a little alarming, maybe more than a little alarming, that a lot of stable coins have treasury bills as collateral. So what you have is a risk that was identified by a Russian, I think he's the economic advisor or the deputy economic advisor in Russia. He said the United States is trying to load down into the stable coin, let's just call it the ocean, the body of liquidity for stable coins. I call it the ocean. The Russian guy said the United States is trying to dump the U.S. treasuries into the ocean of liquidity so that the write-down can be done at an international level and everybody will pay for it. The United States will get away with bloody murder for dumping $38 trillion of debt. Okay, there is that risk. There are a lot of treasury bills that are being used for stablecoin collateral. It's not just that. It's Euro bonds. They're trash also. The formal word is they're badly impaired bonds. Okay, so Euro bonds are being used for collateral. Treasury bills are being used for collateral. I believe probably Japanese government bonds are somewhat used, maybe much, much less, as collateral for stable coins. Well, the stable coin, I think, that has the first risk of falling over, of suffering severe problems and losses, is USD tether. Because when the BRICS nations dump treasuries, and I think they've dumped at least $3 trillion, maybe more in the last 2 years, could be $4 trillion, they've dumped treasuries. There were 2 years ago about $7 trillion of foreign-held U.S. treasuries. Okay, so when the BRICS nations dump treasuries, the U.S. government does something abusive. They increase the supply of tether, and they offer the tether to the sellers, let's just say Saudi Arabia or India or maybe even not Russia, China. So they get stable coins. They get USD tether, and if they're smart, they'll get rid of it quick and do something with it. So yeah, you could be paid, sell treasury bond, get tether, and don't sit on it. Don't invest in tether. It's kind of alarming right now, but tether is trying to become a global diversified investment fund with purchasing gold, with having different consultants and venture capital efforts. Okay, stable coins are a big risk because of the Western sovereign bonds that are being used as its collateral. And they're junk. I mean, if you get really technical, they're junk bonds. U.S. Treasury bills are junk bonds. What do you call a bond when the company has $38 trillion in debt? AAA? get a life.
The XRP exchange-traded funds have begun to roll out. What is the expected volume of this group, and what is the price impact likely to be?
Well, it's getting more complicated by the week. Canary Capital had a launch of an ETF, exchange-traded fund. And for those who don't really know, it means that people who have a stock market account, they could sell Google, they could sell General Electric, they could sell U.S. Steel, and buy an exchange-traded fund for XRP. So it trades like a stock, has a symbol that can be used by a stock market account to purchase XRP. No wallet, no custody issues, no cold wallet, no nothing. The company that issues the ETF has to worry about that. They manage that. Okay, there were estimates a little while ago that there could be $8 to $12 trillion. I'm sorry, 8 to 12 billion. Oh boy, $8 to $12 billion worth of investment demand for all of the ETFs. So far, we've had Osprey, we've had Canary, Franklin Templeton was yesterday. There were a couple more yesterday. Canary Capital drew in $58 million on the first day. Franklin Templeton drew $175 million the first day yesterday. Yesterday, Franklin Templeton and a few others, I think 2 or 3 others, I don't know their names at this moment, they drew in $230 million. These are almost record-breaking first day amounts, except for the Bitcoin ETF a year ago, which provides a nice little track record for how this could turn out. I have the opinion, I'm adapting my opinion because of the shutdown of the U.S. government, and I'm adapting also because of the very likely scenario that the Fed is not going to continue cutting interest rates. That'll hurt speculative investment. And I'm now adapting my opinion a little more because of what I believe is going to happen out of Japan. It is possibly going to be a global event in the next month or 2 or 3. And I don't think even 2 out of 100 analysts have it even on their radar. The Japanese yen carry trade going into reverse. Okay, these ETFs, there are 21 of them altogether planned for XRP. They call them spot XRP funds, which means they're 1-to-1 with the XRP coin. If you want to buy, say, $1,000 worth of the fund, you'll end up buying $1,000 worth behind the management wall of the actual coin. It's not shared. It's not a hybrid. It doesn't have Bitcoin in there. It's XRP only. There are others that have a hybrid nature. But I'm focused on the 21. I listed them in the September report. I gave an update in the October report. And, it's possible that some things will right themselves regarding interest rates and stability in the financial markets. But right now we're seeing a severe downdraft in Bitcoin, a pretty strong decline in the S&P 500 stocks. So it's going to be a harsh environment for these XRP ETF funds. The price impact, there are estimates out there that the ETFs are going to draw in between 30 and 40 billion coins in demand for XRP. 30 to 40 billion coins. And if you use 100 market multiplier on that, you're probably going to see at least a $30 to $50 price increase in the next 12 months. So that could be the price impact. 10x, 15x, 20x from the current price. And it's not even $2.50 right now. It's one of the biggest bargains, I think, in a decade or two for those who have their heads screwed on, for those who don't get overly anxious regarding price movement, for those who can see the developments in 20 different areas regarding Ripple, because I think Ripple has cut a deal with BlackRock and JP Morgan. They will supply those two big financial firms with billions of coins behind the wall, not to run the price up. And in return, Ripple will get global standard status for the XRP as a bridge asset, and Ripple will get the bank license. If you want to learn more about this XRP story, I've got the last 3 or 4 months with a 10-page chapter in the monthly report. So sign up for the newsletter at golden-jackass.com. This is a very big story. The entire globe is going digital for the financial functions, all the functions.
Are we witnessing a global paradigm shift towards digital finance? Is the traditional business model for big banks at risk of removal, replacement, and upgrade? And what is the power struggle all about? Who are likely to be the winners?
This is the biggest shift that I've seen in my adult life. This is the internet coming to banking. Remember 20, 30 years ago, we started using email more. And people started wondering, well, what's going to be the impact on business? Well, you got customer service. Now you got online customer service. You got product information. You got maintenance and details about products online. So there's a lot of online information. There's a lot of email that comes from businesses, and some of it obviously is a nuisance. I mean, you sign up for some sale and you get a bunch of junk mail. But apart from the junk mail aspect, there was a revolution in business and commerce from email. Now what we're going to see is, instead of an email sending a message, it's going to be like an email sending money. Okay, with the speed and the cheap nature of an email, there will be a transfer, and XRP eliminates the escrow accounts, corresponding escrow accounts. They call them the Vostro and Nostro. Vostro account is over there. Nostro is with us. Like, Nostro is Latin for us. It is estimated that $12 to $14 trillion in bank capital will be unlocked and made available for actual usage, not for transfers. Because the brilliance of the nature and design of the XRP is that it brings about a consensual handshake where there's no need for the Vostro and Nostro escrow accounts. This is very big, and it means that instead of 6, 12, or 24 hours to move $10 million or $10,000, it'll be 3 seconds and it'll be 2 cents. Okay, any company that decides they don't want to participate, they will be left out in the cold. They will be outside looking in. They will be knocked out of business. They will go bankrupt and become obsolete. This is going to be a very rapid paradigm shift because no one is going to want to be left behind. One of the fascinating quotes I heard from Ripple's CEO Brad Garlinghouse was, we're not looking to replace Wall Street and traditional banking and the big banks. We're looking to upgrade them. We're not looking to take power. We're looking to share power. Great. Those are very big, important comments to make. Here's what I think is happening, and I said this before. Ripple is going to supply BlackRock and JP Morgan and a few others like Bank New York Mellon, like Bank of America. They're going to supply them with a few billion coins and enable them each to win, to earn an asset appreciation on the order of $1 trillion from the appreciation of XRP. In return, and that's because the big banks, that's where the power lies. They're not going to give up power. The big banks are going to say, and they are saying, we want to retain power. We'll work with you. What can you give us? And Ripple, I think, and this is speculation, and it's backed up by a lot of evidence, and I cover this in the newsletter. Ripple is saying, well, we'll help you to, build and accumulate your XRP coins. We'll get you into the billions. And if it goes up 1,000-fold, you'll make $1 trillion. If it goes from 2 to 2,000, you'll make $1 trillion. And that's a big bargaining chip. And in return, Ripple wants the bank license, and they want the global standard as a bridge asset. This is a very, very big issue. The winners are going to be those who adopt the digital finance. The losers are going to be the ones who say, let's wait a year or two and see how this shakes out. Oh, no. I have a joke. Will Citibank say, well, you other Wall Street banks, you go ahead and we're going to sit back and watch to see how it goes? And Citibank doesn't enjoy the 80 to 85% reduced costs? I don't think so. 2 days ago, Bank of America CEO let it be known, all 100% of the Bank of America transfers will be done in XRP. They want the 80 to 85% cost reduction. There's going to be a very rapid adoption. I'm going to talk about this in the newsletter for November. I'm working on notes right now. I call it the macro effect, the micro effect, and the stage-in effect. They're not going to go, oh, gosh, let's just do some of this, and maybe 6 months we'll do some more. No, they're going to do it pretty quickly. They're testing it right now. Okay, the winners are going to be the adopters. The power struggle is going to be very, very interesting. I expect Ripple is going to be mentioned in 5 years or 3 years. Ripple will be mentioned among the Wall Street banks as a power center. So that means the Ripple IPO coming out is going to be yet another 100-bagger. They're going to take their time for that issuance, because the more they wait, the higher the price initially will be. Okay, that's enough. My newsletter will cover a lot of this, and I urge people to sign up for their own benefit. Learn about this. Okay, me and like 3 or 4 other colleagues and buddies who are investing in XRP, we don't know 5 people who are invested in our private lives. We don't know 5 people. One woman I know, she said, Jim, I have a certain group I go and meet once a week, and not a single person is an investor of XRP. One has some Bitcoin. I talked to another one. They said, we got a little investment group, and we're pretty much, gold and silver and some mining companies, but none of us has XRP. No. Okay, we're in the minority. Get involved. This is going to be one of the biggest things, I believe, and I'm just speaking like a guy expressing an opinion. I think this is going to be one of the biggest things that happens in the next 10 years. And don't be discouraged if it sits at 2 to 2.5 for another month or two. Don't be discouraged. Follow the fundamental news, and that's just what I cover in the newsletter. All right.
The gold and silver prices are bound within a certain range for over 2 months. What's likely to happen before the end of the year with those prices?
Oh, gosh, if they don't if they don't cut interest rates at the Fed, we just might go sideways for a while longer. I mean, stay within a range, a bounded range. I just think that the shutdown for the government was a wet blanket, and if the Fed does not follow through, if Trump cannot get Powell out, and, as much as they like to say it, the Fed is still somewhat a troublesome independent group that has more ties than we know to the Wall Street banks. I think there's a war going on, a war between the Treasury Department and BlackRock. And BlackRock has their boy, Jerome Powell, at the Fed. I think the BlackRock firm has control of the Fed. So there's a war going on between Wall Street banks, which represent the government, and BlackRock.
What are the principal factors involved to move the precious metal markets?
Difficulties with the dollar, the king dollar losing its power globally. That is the biggest. Countries that say we don't want to do trade payment in the dollar, That's the biggest. What are they going to do? They're very likely to go to XRP or use the two currencies involved. Like India is working with UAE for oil, and they work with the rupee, and they work with the dirham out of UAE. They're going to be avoiding the dollar. That means the dollar loses its support. It loses the demand for treasury bills on trade payment. The other big issue is U.S. government debt. Now, if you think the debt is getting better, you're wrong. It used to be a new $1 trillion every 100 days. Now it's a new $1 trillion every 80 days. And don't let the trade tariffs confuse you. That's really not part of the deficit. It's like a little added line that's queer. It's not an annual item. It's not something that has momentum. It's like an extortion. If you want to trade with the United States, we're going to be charging you like a third world nation. That's not progress. That's a gun to the head. And India basically delivered a middle finger to Trump and said, we're going to be buying more Russian oil and gas. And now they're kind of working backward on that claim, and it's very confusing. The U.S. government debt is a very big issue. The acceptance of the U.S. dollar for trade payment as a standard is a very big issue. And there's a new kind of wrinkle to this, and it's like, anti-U.S. for military activity. If they are angry at the United States for military aggression, the dollar takes a hit. One of the big advantages for the dollar is that all the others look like toilet paper also.
What's your quick take on the Epstein files controversy?
Everybody's guilty. Democrats are guilty. Republicans are guilty. Especially the older politicians. Some military figures are guilty. I don't think judges are guilty. I don't think governors are guilty. But they might be involved with Diddy, which is just another, sidebar to Epstein. Everybody's guilty. So what's happening now is almost humorous. The Democrats are saying that Team Trump, Trump and Patel, Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, they're all protecting the pedophiles. Oh, no. The Democrats are very guilty. And that's saying a lot because Obama, he was pretty dirty too. He installed Marxism, and the American publics were such dumbasses they haven't figured that out yet. Epstein makes it very clear everybody's guilty. So either everybody gets implicated or nobody gets implicated. There's no such thing as only one little sector will get implicated because everybody's guilty. There's a lot of money thrown around. There's a lot of videos that were taken. There were a lot of Mickeys that were handed. And I think that if Trump releases the Epstein files, it's only because they've been heavily edited and they're ready for public view. Let's move on.
What are you hearing on the breakup of Canada? Let the focus be on Alberta. Is Alberta suddenly an independent state? And what of joining the United States?
This is one of the most interesting political hot potatoes and initiatives that I have seen in my adult life. And it's constructive. I think, what's her face? Danielle Smith is a hero. She's very brave. She's the premier of Alberta. You know some of these things better than me, Jim, but I'm just going to express it as I have been learning it, and I'm on a fast learning curve. A fellow named Mo, I don't remember his first name. He's the governor, premier, they call them premiers in Canada for the American audience, of Saskatchewan. And a little known fact. This is
Premier
kind of
Mo,
interesting.
yeah.
Pardon me?
I said Premier Mo. That's
Premier Mo.
Yeah, his last name.
What's his first name? Greg Mo? I can't think of it. Doesn't matter. Okay, here's a little tidbit of information that it's not really important, but it's just my little asterisk. When I was 14 years old, I spent the entire summer in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where my father was a guest professor at the university in Saskatoon.
I believe his first name is Scott Mo.
Scott Mo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So I've been to Saskatchewan, and it's a really beautiful, flat place. I've been to Alberta. I've been to Banff, the most gorgeous spot I've ever witnessed on Earth. And I've been to Rome, and I've been to Switzerland. Banff. BANFFF. Anyway, the Alberta resentment, anger, disgust, and peaceful rebellion has reached a peak. And this is my understanding. I'm doing the best I can. And honestly, a year ago, I thought, well, that's kind of a crazy thought. Now I'm realizing that Carney, the prime minister, has alienated the Western provinces. He's paying no attention to them. He tells them that, and the parliament is telling them, the Liberals in the parliament in Ottawa are telling Alberta, we've got your climate change issues. We've got the carbon tax levies. We've got the resistance for certain economic development that uses too much electricity. We got our electric policies. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. But what the Liberals and Carney, the Prime Minister, have said is, go ahead and do whatever you're going to do. Whatever. And Alberta has followed the legal pathways. Now, this is a bit new to me in the last week, but the High Court, the High Court of Canada, laid out a pathway for provinces to declare independence. And I don't have all the information, Jim. I do the best I can. I'm learning, but they basically said, if you're really upset, don't be ragging on us. Here's a blueprint for leaving the Union, the Commonwealth of Canada. So that's exactly what Alberta has done under the leadership of Danielle Smith, and they have developed commercial ties with the Pacific Rim, oil and gas deals in Asia. They have done other developmental projects. They've got a lot of contracts with the United States, for which they do over 70% of their business. And Danielle Smith is acting and leading Alberta like an independent state, saying F you to the Canadian government in Ottawa. And Scott Moe of Saskatchewan is saying, whatever you do, we do. Now, I've checked the population. I did this a couple of days ago. 5 million people in Alberta. 2 major cities are Calgary and Edmonton. Saskatchewan is pretty darn small, 1.2 million. Saskatoon is a tiny town. I remember that. Regina in Saskatchewan is a bigger town, but it's not very big. I think it's got 500,000. Saskatchewan is basically a grain field. They've got a big output of agriculture. Now, here's the other big distinction of Alberta. It is oil and gas. Huge. And the United States is going to get it. We're now calling, we Americans are now calling Alberta the second Texas. It's got oil and gas, but it's also got an enormous amount of potash. Potash is a fertilizer, and it's going to be spread all across the United States. They're going to have one of the best fertilized farmlands next year in April ever. Okay. What's the upshot? I got to mention Manitoba, and their main city is Winnipeg, or as I like to say, Winnipeg. I've been to Winnipeg. I remember when I was a 14-year-old kid, I was talking to the lady in a big fog bank. I was talking to the lady who was running the hotel, asking about what's the city all about? What do you do here? What do you do besides, check out the check out nature walks. What do you do here? I was 14. She told me a lot of different things. Manitoba has more population than Saskatchewan. It has 1.4 million. And every time I hear about the Alberta separation movement, I hear Saskatchewan is tagged along. They're going to do exactly what Alberta does. Manitoba wants to be included because they're fed up with the Eastern liberal morons. And we also hear repeatedly interior British Columbia. So I guess Vancouver has been sacrificed to the Chinese Communist Party, and the rest of British Columbia might seek independence. Maybe there'll be some kind of a split. I don't understand what that's all about. But the upshot of it all, in my opinion, is the collapse of the Canadian government and the collapse of the Eastern economy, Quebec and Ontario. Collapse. Collapse. Absent energy, absent food. High energy costs, gasoline, electricity, high food costs. Alberta and Saskatchewan are going to deliver their grains down south. This is a gigantic FU and middle finger to Ottawa, and they really haven't absorbed the impact yet because they're too effing stupid and proud and tied by the neck to the Chinese Communist Party. And the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, what a bunch of useless effing fools. Bought and paid and vaxxed. Bought and paid by the Chinese and vaccinated. A bunch of useless Praetorian guards. Let's move on.
What is the fate of the Canadian nation if the Western provinces move towards independence?
Break up. Fracture. They'll be scrambling to look for a parent. They'll be fractured and looking for a currency. The dollar. United States of North America. Here we come. I think it's going to be at least 3 provinces from the West. And then Ontario, it's going to have an interior revolution. They're going to dismiss the mayor of Toronto in the fraudulent election where the Chinese lady stole it. They're going to have the governor, which you call the premier in Ontario. He's going to be up in arms. They're going to be in a battle against Ottawa. You brought this about. You didn't pay attention to our energy and grain source out west. You made this happen. So it's going to be a big, big infighting, big conflict in the eastern power centers. And that's population center. Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, all the little cities around Toronto. Well, there are about 10 or 15 of them. None of them is small. A lot of population. Okay. I think it's going to bring about the fracture and collapse of the Canadian government, and I applaud that. I'm looking forward to that. We need to see that, and you guys need to get rid of the Chinese influence in your government. But you're not going to get rid of it in Vancouver because it's just too deep.
President Trump has declared Antifa and the Soros Open Society as terrorist organizations. He seems to be close to calling the Democrat sanctuary states not just renegade but traitorous. The Obama and Biden judges are supporting their sanctuary status with all-out rebellion. The U.S. National Guard's been called into action. What's next in this treacherous situation?
I think, unfortunately, in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, we're going to have increasing violence that will be eventually called civil war. Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. Their governors have been supporting the sanctuary status, which is unlawful. Sanctuary for illegal immigrants who are receiving benefits, many of whom are fraudulently on food stamps, who've been given citizenship, who've been given Social Security cards, who are on Social Security income. This is insurrection. It's an invasion. It's insurrection, and I think it's going to hit a flashpoint in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. I think the principal, the initial breakdown will be in Chicago. This is not well known, and I need to verify this, but I got a news item yesterday that said Brandon Screwball, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Screwball, IQ probably in the 70s, he just doubled the property tax for Chicago. Oh, that ought to go over well. The governor Pritzker is very anti-Trump. He's vocal about hating Trump. He's defiant about breaking the laws. And the Chicago region judges are ordering the release of ICE prisoners, immigration control and enforcement, ICE. I think that's right. It's the immigration cops. The judges are ordering Trump to release because I guess Chicago and Illinois, they want the violence and mayhem. They want the rapes and assaults to continue. They want the firebombs to continue. They want the arson to continue. I guess they want civil war, so the judges are ordering conditions conducive to civil war. Oh my gosh. There have already been attacks on ICE holding centers, otherwise called prisons, mobs, and the ICE cops